so many companies are so inefficient with not just generating revenue, but like turning that revenue into actual profit. I mean, you have to get that dialed in anymore, or I think you're going to be dead in a year or two.
Welcome back to the Built to Scale podcast. Today's guest is Jeremy Reeves, founder of Scale Advisors and author of the book, The Scalable Profit Model. Jeremy has built 5 8-figure offers, generated over $200 million in revenue, and helped many brands hack their ads to perfection. But this conversation isn't really about ads. It's about the hidden levers behind scale. Jeremy breaks down why acquisition is only one piece of the puzzle and the financial metrics that actually determine whether a company can scale profitably. We also get into why AI is about to erase most marketing advantages and why the businesses that will survive will win on economics, product, and customer experience. And before you dig into this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this with someone who's trying to scale their business. Now, if you're sitting, relax. If you're at the gym, pick up the pace because this episode is going to change how you see every dollar moving through your business. I'm your host, Shmuel Hirschberg, and this is the Built to Scale podcast. Listen up and let's start scaling now. Go for me. So yeah, let's just get into it. I mean, we're already talking, we're already recording, and it's a pleasure to have him here on the Built to Scale podcast. Jeremy, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm glad to be here. Can't wait to dive in, share some value.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're definitely going to get into the book and that thesis that you have that marketing is only one of the 5 levers. But why don't we just start with going back to some of these businesses that you helped build up, how you got into that and where it all started?
Yeah, so I started in 2008, I think it was 2007, 8 in that range, as a copywriter. So just direct response copywriter. Wrote copy for a couple years, just writing copy, and then probably around 2010, 10, started building sales funnels. And that was like before I forget when like the word sales funnels was actually termed. It was probably 2012 or something like that. I forget, maybe 11. But so I was doing some pretty advanced stuff even before that was a word, doing like segmented funnels and stuff. I mean, one of the things I did way, I mean, this is going back, she's probably 2010, 11, something like that. But we did a segmented email funnel for one of the clients and increased his overall email results by like 270% just by segmenting it. And, I mean, it's the same thing that I teach now is like talk to very specific people about very specific pain points, it does the same that still does just as well. If you have an ad, like be a very, very specific ad to a very specific landing page. It works and will always work. But anyway, so yeah, basically sales copywriter and sales funnel specialist up until 2017, and then I got a very strange offer from someone who's basically bring me into their company as an employee. So I actually left. I had a really good, like thriving business and actually left the freelancing world to go and get a job, which is weird. But it was a very unique job that it was like I can kind of do what I wanted, in terms of like coming up with all the strategy. I was kind of like running my own thing. He gave me a lot of freedom and upside in the company and like just a lot of different things. And so I gave
That company?
what's that?
What was that company called?
That was called Mindful Health. So they had when I first started, they were selling DVDs of all things.
Of course.
Yeah,
You have to
and
have the shipping and handling charge.
yeah, free. It was like a free plus shipping, but like instead of like a book or something that you'd see now, it was DVDs, and it was a fitness thing, and those ladies love those DVDs. You're selling
Yeah.
like God,
Yeah,
thousands.
personal anecdote here. When I was also in that same space around 15 years ago, I used to also do email marketing and as an affiliate for these products, and I would get a lot of supplements and DVDs in the mail, and my wife would always knock me for these DVDs and stuff that I would get these DVDs about for basically targeting the women audience.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they sold, and eventually that petered out. When I came in, it was already on the decline, and then it was kind of funny though because That was going down for obvious reasons. And but then the first product that we launched with them, we got into the supplement space and it was like just shy of 8 million in the first year. I think it was like 7,950,000 or something in the first 12 months of launching that. And have done 5 that I know of, 5 different offers that have done 8 figures or more. Not like per year, but just in total, total lifespan. Some of them I think were 8 figures a year or at least close, some are in the multi 8 figures lifespan. I mean, a lot of them they went for a long time. So yeah, anyway, so spent, a lot of doing that. I left them in 2019 and started my supplement company, Peak Buy. Which we got that up to 1 million a month. We did like kind of the first 3 months was like a trial, not a trial, but a like a soft launch, kind of figuring out all the kinks and all that kind of stuff. And then we launched Peak Bio Boost, which ended up being for just the company in general was our bestseller. And we went from like 30 grand a month to 1 million a month in 3 months, which was beyond absurd. It was so fun and obviously, I mean, it was great. Very very lucrative. Obviously, it was a lot of fun scaling that fast. But wow, was it insane! It was just I mean, I was working nonstop for a while. It was literally me, an affiliate manager, and one customer service rep for a period of time. And I mean, we were getting hundreds of support tickets every day. Like it was, I was literally working and get up at 5, work all day on all the business stuff, and then eat dinner basically work until dinner, and then I'd spend the nights when the customer service person was off. The tickets just kept piling in, and they couldn't keep up. So I was answering customer service tickets while we were doing $1 million. Like it was insane, And that was only for like a few weeks until we got started getting more hired more people and stuff. But
Okay, you figured
uh,
out the
yeah,
hiring
yeah, yeah,
process. Okay, that's
right, yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. I didn't always do that.
Tell me about these companies that you were scaling. Was there any pattern for good or for bad that you recognized immediately when you were digging into these companies?
Right. Yeah. So I would say one of the biggest things. So there's a lot of them in terms of like acquisition economics, which is one of the 5 levers that I teach now. So you have to have the right economics to be able to scale properly. You have to generate enough contribution margin per customer versus what you're spending on them in a reasonable time frame to be able to get that money back and then continue pouring it into inventory and more acquisition and all that kind of stuff. So you need your acquisition economics dialed in, and not just acquisition, just your economics in general, because there's the acquisition part, which is what most people focus on, but then there's also LTV, right? There's also what happens after that, and a lot of people forget about that, and it's kind of crazy because if you just look at what that actually adds to your bottom line, it's like it's insane that people wouldn't focus on that, because generally with LTV, it depends on a lot but you're generally looking at like I always look at everything in terms of leverage, right? So if we add a dollar or save a dollar, how much, or we go up a percent, right? So if we add 1% better lifetime value, how much percent of profit do we see? And with LTV, it's generally in like the 2 to 4 range, right? So if you add a dollar in LTV, you're going to get roughly $2 to $4 in profit. So it's once you actually break them down, you're like, oh my god, why am I spending all of my time in marketing and acquisition? Uh,
Absolutely. They always talk about, the cost of acquiring a new customer versus getting more out of a pre-existing customer.
right. Yeah.
It's always gonna be the latter. It's gonna be
Right.
much
Yeah.
cheaper and much more efficient and much more
Right.
profitable.
Right. Yeah.
Once you have that customer and you paid for that cost of acquisition, you better get as
Yeah.
much revenue as you can, especially today where acquisition costs are just going through the roof.
hmm And they're only going to go up more. I mean, especially with AI now. Oof. I mean, it's going to be. I think over the next 5 years, especially as we're going to see a big, 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 big shift in just the number of entrepreneurs. I think like it's one of my predictions is as these people lose jobs because of AI and they're going to go, okay, well, what can I do? Well, the only option I have left is no one's hiring. I'm going to start a business.
Yep, yep.
And
I
then,
had a colleague, from the past. I worked with him 5, 6 years ago, maybe even more even. He what not a developer at all. He put something together on Lovable,
Mhm.
and he pitched it to me. He said, "What do you think of this? Can you help me with, how to scale and stuff?" Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, that's just simple economics, right? The more people that come into the marketplace, there's more entrepreneurs, means more competition. More competition means guess what? CAC is going to go up, right? More competition, people are going to be adding more to Facebook and to Google and all those things. And the more that goes into them, well, they're going to increase their prices, and it's just going to continue going up. So that's why I teach what I teach, because like so many companies are so inefficient with not just generating revenue, but like turning that revenue into actual profit. I mean, you have to get that dialed in anymore, or I think you're going to be dead in a year or two. So I mean, that's why I teach what I do.
Yeah.
So anyway, so
So
going back to your
let's
question.
get into that. Let's get into that. So you're teaching a lot and you kind of like synthesized all the, I guess, all the actionable and top ideas and put this together into the scalable profit model. When did this book come out?
Let's see. I think I launched it in March of this year, so like roughly 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and the book basically walks you through what I'd call a scalable profit model. Right? Everyone has a profit model of some sort, and a profit model is just like the actions that are taken, like the journey a customer goes through that you generate the customer up front, and then like what happens once that happens. From your contribution margin, like how much are you actually keeping on the initial sale and every sale after that? And so there's 5 levers that go into it. The first one is contribution margin, right? Because that you just have such a huge leverage point with contribution margin, and a lot of people don't realize it. So I was going back. I was talking about leverage before. General, and again, the numbers are different with you'd have to break them down for your business, but I'm just going in generalities. Generally, for every 1% improvement you see in contribution margin, you're going to see like a 4 to 6% improvement in profit. So extrapolate that out to, if you get a 10% improvement in contribution margin, you can generally increase your profit by 40 to 60%. It's crazy, and it's so overlooked. Second one is acquisition economics. So that like it kind of goes on the efficiency of converting prospects into customers, and then the efficiency of maximizing how much contribution margin you receive from each customer on the initial purchase. And then the third one is lifetime value. So that's obviously, I think most people know what lifetime value is. That's pretty much how efficient are you at generating more contribution margin over the lifetime. And more specifically, there's a lot of things people get wrong with contribution margin. But what you really want when you're looking and calculating contribution margin, don't just look at your revenue divided by your customers. Like if you had $100,000 in revenue from 1,000 customers, it'd be $100 lifetime value. That is the worst way to look at it, and it's probably the most common thing that people do. The first thing
You mean
is,
that they're taking the total revenue, let's say $1 million, right?
mhm,
And then they're dividing that by how many
by the
customers.
number of customers. Yeah, yeah.
So what's the
Um,
right way to do it?
Yeah, so the right way, it's a couple different things. Number one, you have to do everything. Everything, like if you're looking at this in the way that you should be doing it, everything that you're looking at, AOV, LTV, ROAS, all these numbers should be contribution margin adjusted, right? So say that you make like your million divided by 1,000 customers would be $1,000 LTV. If your contribution margin, which like if you're in the D2C space, just say it's 50% for easy numbers. You're not it's not $1 million, it's 500,000 that you actually cap. So your actual LTV per customer that you can actually spend, right, is 500,000, or $500 in this case, right? So it has to be contribution margin adjusted, because contribution margin just takes out all your variable costs pretty much. Those are you can't do anything with that anyway. They have to be paid regardless. That like those the variable costs you have are completely irrelevant, because you don't keep it. It immediately goes out the door, and so you can't do anything with it. So don't it shouldn't be in the calculation. So that's the first thing, is just making sure everything is adjusted for what you actually keep, contribution margin. The second thing is not looking at it in terms of lifetime, right? Which is so funny. It's so ironic that literally the word is lifetime value, but yet that's the worst way to actually look at it, right? So just an extreme example of this is, we'll go back to our example, $500 in lifetime value. And so a lot of people use the LTV to CAC ratio, right? So it's like the comparison of how much you spend versus their lifetime value, I think is another terrible metric. Because what if you spend, let's just say $100, and you have a 5 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio. You're spending $100 to acquire the customer, and you generate $500 in lifetime value from that customer. And we'll even say it's contribution margin adjusted. Most people would say, "Oh my God, you have a 5 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio. That's great, right?" Well, what if you're calculating LTV on a 10-year basis, right? All of a sudden, not so great, right? If that's on a 1 year basis, that's a solid number, right? 10-year basis, not so much, and you're going to go bankrupt real fast.
So I've asked a lot of our guests on the podcast. I don't remember exactly how many, like how they define lifetime value. So is that what you're getting at? That lifetime value is not lifetime,
Yeah.
75, 80 years.
Yep.
You're talking about lifetime is more of a compounded, what is it? What would you say? 6 months,
But
a
yeah, I
year?
mean, it's basically like the way that you should be basically tracking it is how much contribution margin are you generating per customer over what time frame? That's pretty much a better thing because then you can look at it and then okay, I spent $100 to acquire the customer. Day one, we make, let's just say 50 back, right? So you're not profitable. Let's just say day 30, you're now at 100. So now you're break even on at least on acquisition costs. And if you're there, also remember you still have inventory and overhead costs. So you're still not actually break even on the money. It's just on acquisition, you're broke break even. And then let's just say that on average, and again, we're doing simple numbers here. Let's just say that you add $50 per month, you know, for the first year, or whatever. So then by month two, now you're at 150 in lifetime value or 2 month value, we'll call it on 100 spent. By month three, you're at 200. By month four, you're 250, etc. So you want to be able to look at it, and in like your data dashboard platforms, you want to be able to see like, okay, I know that LTV is going up over time, so that you can look and then determine based on cash flow, based on your goals, based on everything that you're looking at, I know how much I'm generating per customer on average over a given time frame. Whether that, and then you use different time frames to make this different decisions, right? So anything I would say under 6 months ish is going to be on the acquisition side. After that, then you're starting to look into like, okay, how do we add more to add more margin, things like that. So as it depends on what purpose you're using that for, but in general, yeah. So lifetime value, contribution margin, make sure it's adjusted for that. And then also you're looking at a specific time frame. And then the third one I would say is just in how you're looking at it and like how you're calculating it. And the best way to do it is through cohorts, right? So let's just say like it's May, right? So we'll just say we've already had 4 months. So if I were looking at my 4 month value, I wouldn't want to look at, I don't know, someone like starting in February. I would want to look at you basically need all 4 months. So you need January, February, March, April. So you would only be looking at people on just say January 1st, right? And what do they over their 4 months, what do they contribute to lifetime value versus if you're kind of looking at everyone, you're going to be getting people that haven't gone through that full time frame. So you want to make sure you're doing cohort based and doing it so that everybody in that cohort has gone through whatever length you're looking at, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. Make sure they've gone that
Very
through
smart.
the
Very
the full
smart.
cycle. Does that
That's
make
great
sense?
advice. That's great
Yeah.
advice. Excellent. All right. So we're at step three, right? We just did step three. Lifetime value.
That was lever two. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah, that was the lifetime. Yeah, I was thinking acquisition.
So let's just review what we did. So we had no, no, number one was
Contribution margin.
contribution margin.
Yep. Two is acquisition economics, and then three is lifetime value.
Okay. And now
Yep.
we're up to number four.
Yep. So four is operational efficiency, and that is kind of like with acquisition economics. There's kind of two parts of it. So the one is the financial part of operational efficiency, and I love operational efficiency simply because it's so overlooked, right? And it's like the the redheaded stepchild of business, especially in the space that I've been in most of my life. At least 5% of people I know love marketing. Everything they do is marketing related. It's all on acquisition, maybe a little bit of LTV, barely any contribution margin, barely any operations. And I get it, right? Marketing is the sexy thing. It's what gets the customers. Everyone just wants more customers, more volume, more revenue, even though a lot of times it doesn't make sense.
And we have the best parties as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I was one of those people, by the way, up until probably 6, 7 years ago. And what really did it for me was getting really good operations in my own company and actually being able to see it firsthand. Right. So the two parts that make up operational efficiency is the financial side, which is I like to just overhead per customer. Right. So if you have $10,000 a month in overhead, and like on average, 10,000 in overhead and 1,000 customers, you'd have $10 overhead per customer, just for simple math. That is really important. It's actually another one that a lot of people never really know because they wouldn't like have a use to use it. Whereas in my model, you do, and it's really easy to calculate, right? You just look at your P&L for 2 seconds and you can calculate it. That's really important because it shows you how efficient you're being with your operations. Because a lot of people would say like, oh, you're bloated or you're lean, right? That actually gives you a number to quantify what bloated or lean means. Good example of this, I worked with someone 6, 7 months ago. I'm doing a lot of 6, 7s here.
Yeah.
It was probably about 6, 7 months ago, and, no, actually, it was, like, 9 months ago, jeez. The second I looked at her P&L, she had a labor to revenue ratio of about 33%, right? Which if you're not familiar with that, it's very, very high. That basically means that a third of her expenses, or a third of her revenue, was going to labor, like not even just total operation, just labor. So that was one of the major things that we worked on. Um, that should have been somewhere in the range of like 10 to 15%, and for her, it was like a $600,000 a year gap. And so that basically shows you like the way that I look at things is like, okay, you should be here, you're here. The difference is 600,000. Therefore, once we get everything in place and we get everything working how it should be working, you're going to save $600,000 a
For
year.
sure, for
Now,
sure.
that's of course assuming she let everyone go. She actually made the choice to keep everyone to make them more effective, right? Which is usually the choice that I would make too. I'm generally looking to like keep the people, assuming they're good employees, and make them more
And
capable
make it work.
versus just get rid of them.
Yeah.
For many reasons, on both an ethical level, on a on multiple levels.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely. This really resonates. I mean, at Built to Scale, we built our agency around operators who really understand the full picture,
mhm.
not just the ROAS dashboard.
Yep. So that's the financial side of things, and then the other side is just the like peace of mind, right? I mean, I talk to it's always so ironic to me that most of the people that I talk to are completely stressed out of their minds as an entrepreneur, but then they don't care about operations. I'm like, how are you so stressed and you want to rip your face off all day long, but then you don't want to put any work in operations? It doesn't make sense.
And this is really the starting point.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
if you could equate it to someone, someone wants to get into business, you got to put money in to invest, and you're basically digging a hole. And the further you dig that hole into the ground, the harder it is to climb
Right.
out.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, so like when you get efficient operations and I always go by like you get the right people, you hire the right people, which most people already don't have a hiring process. Usually the hiring process that when I'm first working with the client and I ask them what their hiring process is, it's generally comes down to I get on the phone and if I like them, I hire them, right? Uh, and or with a referral. Like, I mean, I've been hired by many people, and it was just because they liked me. I have a fun, kind of bubbly personality, as you could probably tell, and I make connections quick with people, and so it's easy for me to get hired if I meet them
Yep.
because I can
Jeremy,
just
you're
kind of
hired.
yeah, I can just kind of turn on the charm and bam, there it is. And it's but like I want them to be asking questions. I want them to be probing me. That was a weird way of saying that, but I want them to be deep diving, like, hey, why did you make this decision? What results have you gotten? Have you worked with clients that are similar to my company? Yada, yada, yada. Like, why would you be better than the next person? I want to answer those questions. But in most cases, we kind of just bullshit for a while and then we end up liking each other and then I get hired. And so if you're doing that, which again, like most people are, you have to be objective. Stop. You should like the person. That should be the baseline,
That should be basics. Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. If,
yeah.
and if you're going to have to spend time with this person, and in today's culture, it's probably going to be online and through Zoom or Google Meet, whatever it is. Either way, you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. Getting along with them is
Eh,
just, ABC.
right, exactly. So yes, you should like them. It would be I don't think even if I thought they were an absolute badass, I don't think I would hire someone that I just like physically didn't like that I got on the phone. I was like kind of like you get that pit in your stomach before
Yep.
like I don't
Yep.
think I would even hire them.
And just ethically, you also have to be on the same page.
Also, yeah, that too. But that should not be the only criteria, right? So you should have a documented process that you go through. You're taking notes. You're scoring people. Like I built a whole like 20-page document for this. And so it's hiring the right people, putting them in the right roles. And I mean, generally, if you're hiring them, you know what role they're going into, but like have them come in and they know what KPIs, they know what success looks like. You're having discussions back and forth. You're doing reviews on them and showing them where they're being weak, where they're being strong, depending on the case. Hey, you're here and I know you want a promotion here. Here's what has to happen for you to do that. Like you should have all this stuff because if you're hiring A players, which again you should be, and if you follow a process, like that's what's going to let you find the A players. If you hire them, A players want to win, right? We want to be shown the goal and then we can figure out how to get to the goal. But if you as an entrepreneur are not showing them what success looks like, how to win, you can't expect them to win, right? Even if
So,
they are an A player.
yeah, so I just want to unpack this a bit because this sounds so basic and so important. Why
Should be.
isn't this the first pillar?
It should be. So I would say the reason that it's not the first pillar is number one, just for the audience. I didn't want to start a book on operations because it's boring, right? It's the
Okay.
thing that nobody cares about. So it was partially sort of a give them what they want sort of situation. The other thing is I it's operations has the least leverage of all the in terms of profit, which is typically why people are working with me, buying the book, doing the things, right? That's typically a bigger thing than the peace of mind. Other people do more peace of mind. That's obviously a huge part of what I do.
Explain that. Is that because like you're just kind of like just going down into like how much things cost and there's only so much things are going to cost as opposed to scaling, which you could just scale to the moon?
Right. Yeah. So like with in terms of leverage, is that what you're asking? Like
Yeah, just
yeah.
in terms of operations, you said there's a fixed cost to it. So
Mhm.
obviously it could be on the expensive side. So there's definitely some stuff that you could be cutting, but you're never going to be able to cut expenses down to zero.
Correct. Yeah. So there's kind of a ceiling on how much you can improve it, and which is kind of funny because you're going down not up with ceiling to be up, but yeah, so and also just if you break down the numbers, like I built a lot of calculators and I just look and say like, okay, if we increased contribution margin 10%, what does that do to profit? Acquisition economics, what does that do to profit? LTV, etc. And operations, that's whereas contribution margin you're typically seeing like a 4 to 6 to one leverage. Operational, it's there are exceptions like my client, like with hers, that's a good example of I looked at it, I'm like, "Oh my god, this." Not all cases are that extreme. I would say most people are bloated, but she was like insanely like dead whale on a beach bloated. And I actually spotted like it was literally in the first like 10 minutes that I was working with her. I actually spotted what the like where the issue was and then exactly what the problem was, which in her case was a whole it was an onboarding sequence actually that was like completely messed up, had been there for years. And because that was broken, she had to hire multiple US based reps. They were getting on the phones of people. It was just for an information product. And it was like 85% of people that needed hand holding just to get access to the product. And if you've been in the information, that should be like a few percent, like 2 or 3%, just people who like have never used the internet before. Hers was like
We
80,
still have those
85%.
people today?
What's that?
We still have those people today?
I know, right? But anyway, so hers was the exception, but in general, it's more of like a 2, maybe 3 to 1 leverage versus some of the other ones, it's like 4 to 6. Acquisition economics is probably 4 or 5. LTV is generally 3, 4, something like that. Operational efficiency is like 2, like maybe 3 if it's really bad. So it's uh, not quite as much leverage. And again, depending on the situation, there's so many nuances. Depending on the situation, sometimes it takes longer. Like if you're trying to cut back on your employees, right? It takes at least, assuming you're doing it properly, it takes some time to like if you let someone go, there's a void, right? That you have to then fill somehow, whether it's with AI or with someone else. Or I have a client that I'm working with now where she let someone go and she's like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much that person was doing. And now I have to do all that work. And now I
Uh-huh.
don't have any work to do
Yeah.
on the revenue producing stuff. So it's one of the things she just came on as a client, like literally last week. So I'm working with her on like, okay, first thing we have to do is free you up. right? So we got to get that out of the way so you actually have time to do revenue producing stuff. And so then, and again, in her case, there are exceptions to all these. It's kind of just I had to pick a default, a default path, and then the exceptions can change. And that's where like discernment comes in, where I've seen so many different scenarios that I can look at the 5 levers at once and be like, okay, yes, there's more leverage here, but like this thing, we could just bang that out in 3 days, unlock that. That gives, that unlocks something else. So it's all about looking at the constraints and seeing just for that business, what is the big
Yeah.
constraint,
Yeah. And also what I'm hearing about the operational lever is that it's kind of isolated from the contribution, acquisition, and lifetime value, that those things will have a multiplier effect.
Mhm.
Whereas, operational value, you cut things as much as you can to make it efficient and give you the best chance for profitability. But then that's not going to have any effect on lifetime value. That's not going to have effect on acquisition marketing.
Yeah. So it will. I mean, not really lifetime value, but it does actually not acquisition economics because, and we'll actually get in that for a sec. So the way that what I think is the proper way to calculate your allowable customer acquisition costs, I think most people get it wrong, and it simply comes back to pick your time frame, right? And how long do you want to break even it, right? And let's just say that's 3 months that you want to break even, not on acquisition because that's where most people go. It's just acquisition, but on everything, on your inventory, your acquisition, and your overhead per customer, right? So let's just say it's 3 months to pay for all that, and then you start making profit after that. Your allowable acquisition cost is just simply how much contribution margin you generate within that 3 months minus your overhead per customer. And that gives you, so if it's like you generate 200 in contribution margin within 3 months, your overhead is, let's just say 50. That means you can spend 150 for each customer, and that you break even on everything within 3 months, and then everything after that is lifetime value and profit, and that's how you can grow sustainably once you know those numbers. Because a lot of people will get into, they're like, I don't know what I can pay because I want to scale and I know how much cash I have, but I don't know what I can pay because they've never actually broken down the math. And like that's the math, right? You just pick your time frame that you want to break even in, and you're going to pick that based on your cash and how much you can float and that sort of thing. And then you take your contribution margin, so you have to be tracking that, and then you subtract your overhead per customer. So in that sense, if you take your overhead per customer, let's just say it was 100. So we'll go back to that. Let's just say it was 200 contribution margin, 100 overhead. So you can spend 100 per customer. Well, if you want to increase how much you can spend per customer to get more volume, and you took the operations from 100 per customer to 50, well, that you can take that $50 and add it to your acquisition cost. So now instead of 100, now you can afford 150 at the same profit level.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
with every additional customer that you have, it will lower your acquisition cost in terms of your, obviously not COGS and stuff, because that you have to produce more product. But, in terms of your team, you have your email marketing team that's running a campaign for 100 people or 1,000 people. It's the same overhead for them.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So it depends. So basically, you have to actually say that one again. I totally lost the train.
As you're increasing your customer acquisition, right? So your operational cost, for the most part, though, that will stay constant. Obviously, we have your COGS and stuff,
Mhm,
and cost of good, COGS, obviously cost of goods. But in terms of your just overhead, your department structure and stuff,
mhm,
your copywriting team, your customer success team, your email team, your paid media and stuff, all you're not just going out overnight and hiring another email marketer
mhm.
or another paid media specialist if you're, if you get one more customer.
Yep.
So that's what I mean by, to a certain degree, as you grow, that cost will, it will be
Yeah, it'll improve. Yeah.
less and
So
improve.
so what I'll say is theoretically that's true. The problem with that, because yeah, if you look at the equation, right? If you add more volume, you're adding more customers with the same overhead, so therefore your overhead per customer goes down. So yeah, in that sense, that's absolutely true. So that could even mean that even if you just increase conversions, right? If you get a 10% boost in your conversions, that automatically drops your overhead per customer. And the cool thing about it is that if you drop your overhead $50 and you add that into acquisition, now you're getting more customers, which then drops out even more.
Hmm.
So that's the theory. Where that goes wrong is that people do that and then they say, "Oh, I want to grow more, and to grow more I need more employees," which then adds more overhead costs. So it's like that's
Okay.
where you have to,
Yeah,
if you're very, very cognizant of it, yes, absolutely. And that's the whole point, is to be aware of how that works,
for
right?
sure. And it's very important, obviously, to invest money back into the business to grow the business,
Mhm.
but to do it responsibly and not just,
Right.
you,
Yeah, not just, yeah. And that's why, like, I mean, everything I teach, it just comes back to being data driven. And the big thing is that you have to understand how profit is created in the business. And if you don't understand that, you don't know what happens, right? Like that's why I'm teaching what I teach, to educate people and show, like we're talking about now, right? Like you do this and that affects over here. And so one of the big things that I talk about, I mean, constantly, I think I've said it probably 5 times just today, is today's my recording content day. But one of the things is that you have to be able to see your business as a holistic unit, right? There's nothing isolated, and operations is slightly more isolated than some of the other levers, but you can see, like, we just had a conversation on how everything is intertwined. Your conversions are tied to your operations. Your operations, when you lower that, can give you more money to spend on acquisition, right? So it's all like one big spider web. Um,
totally, totally. This is exactly what we see at Built to Scale. I mean, our best clients are the ones that are scaling, but they've gone through the whole economics, all these other steps that you've spoken about to make sure that they could support the spend
right,
because,
exactly. Yeah.
you know, you
Yeah.
need that cash flow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're making data driven decisions based on actual
For sure,
metrics. And
for
you
sure, yeah.
understand, if I do
Yeah,
this.
and they say revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash flow is a reality.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about the fifth pillar.
Yep. So the fifth one is capital return velocity. And so that is very much related to like pretty much all of the other levers automatically improve. Like if you improve any of the four, it automatically improves capital return velocity. So capital return velocity it's a metric that I actually coined, because if you look at the financial side of things, there's overhead per customer, right? There's payback period, which, like, how long it takes to get your money back for acquisition. And then there, on the inventory side, there's the cash conversion cycle, right? And so, like, they're all separate. Again, they're isolated. So when I was writing the book, I was like, why is there not a term? I actually had to look it up on like multiple, because I was like, how is there not a term for what I'm trying to say here? Like, to
In terms of just like recycling capital back in,
right.
profit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how long does that whole cycle take from the moment you spend $1 on inventory, acquisition, and overhead, right? Because we all have to spend money on those things in the DTC space. How long is that cycle before it comes back and all those are covered and then it turns into profit?
I see. So you're not just measuring how much capital are we putting back in. You're trying to say like today, Monday, we spent $5, right? $500, $5,000, whatever it is. How long, how many days is it going to take to recycle that money back into
Yeah,
the
pretty
business?
much. Yeah. So, yeah. And it's really just like, again, we have those three isolated. Like everyone's familiar with cash conversion, everyone's familiar with payback period, everyone's familiar with overhead per customer, even though may or may not be tracking it right now. Capital return velocity is basically just adding those three up, right? Because you have however long, let's just say that you pay and just again, we'll go simple here. Let's just say that you pay 100% of your inventory and you have an 8-week lead time, right? You may be thinking that when you're acquiring customers, let's just say, again, simplicity, you're breaking even on day one. And you would just say, hey, I break even on cash on day one. And it's like, well, yeah, you do on acquisition. Again, we're going to assume that you're including contribution margin. Uh, that's just acquisition though, but you still, maybe you paid for inventory 2 months ago, right? So you're already negative 2 months. And then let's just say that you haven't looked at your overhead per customer and it takes you another 2 months to pay off your overhead per customer to cover that. Well, now you're not break even. Now it's 4 months that you're out of cash. So if you're trying to make decisions on scaling and you go, "Oh, let's put a whole bunch of money into scaling," and then the next month you look at your account and you're like, wait, what's happening? And I'm telling you, I've seen this so many times
The,
where they're like, where is the cash? And I'm like, here.
Yeah, yeah, and there are a lot of moving parts because before you're talking about how lifetime value is taking that cohort from only people that came in January. So basically February onwards, we're not looking at them yet because they didn't go through the whole
Right.
early stage funnel.
Yep.
So we're only looking at that segment. And then for, you know, cost of goods and stuff, we're talking about, isolating that moment in time that we're dealing with. Oh, we paid for that 2 months ago, right?
Mhm.
So all of a sudden we're dealing with the January cohort and we're dealing with a cohort from, 2 months ago. And
Mhm.
then we have the cash flow, so there are a lot
Yeah.
of moving parts and
Right. There's a
pieces that
lot.
you have to
Yeah.
figure out. And
Right.
it's not just like one day in time will answer all of those questions.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why, like, I love the D2C space. I'm a gadget guy. Like, I love physical products. I like to touch things and have them in my hand, play with them, and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, there's four like main types of businesses, right? There's the service, information products, physical products, and software. And of those four, physical products are the only ones that have the inventory issue. And it's something that a lot of people don't put enough weight on. And yeah, and of course, there's a lot of ways that you can improve that. But like the first thing that I teach people is you have to understand how this all works together as a unit, and then you can start to diagnose, right? And say, oh wow, I never realized that, and we've been trying to scale, and not thinking like maybe a big one is people not factoring in overhead per customer. That is probably the biggest one of these three. And so if you're bloated and you have $100 overhead per customer, which would be high in this space. But like, again, we're just doing examples here. You're losing a lot more money than you realize. And you need a lot of customers to be able to cover that overhead.
Yeah.
Right. So you just have to understand how they all fit together.
Hmm.
And like I said, the other four levers automatically, when you improve them, they're going to improve capital return velocity. But then, of course, there's other things that you can do for to improve it. I mean, probably the biggest lever is just simply negotiating with your manufacturer. You know what I mean? Get a line of credit if you don't have a
Yep.
line of credit.
Get the
Because
good
you
debt credit.
yeah, yeah. Or I mean, God, I mean, I can free up a whole month of working capital for people right now in 3 seconds. Go find a credit card that offers 60-day terms instead of 30. Right there, you go. There's your win for the day. It takes you literally 10 minutes to apply. There's a bunch of them out there, and yeah, you're gonna lose 1.5% of rewards, but like. Do the math. If your return on invested capital is like 500%, which is not uncommon, and a lot of times it's higher, right? You're literally stepping over 500% to get that 1.5 or get a free flight or whatever. Like, it makes
Yeah.
no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in most cases, and I guess again, you'd have to do the math for yourself, but like in 99.9% of cases, it makes so much more sense to get a credit card that offers longer payment terms than it is to getting cash back. And yeah, so I mean, it really just depends. And then also doing that plus negotiating with your manufacturer, seeing like it said before, 100% 2 months upfront. Maybe you could do 50% upfront and 50% upon delivery, or like,
Or potentially switch, do a contract, um, where you look for a different provider. I mean,
mhm,
depending what your industry is, a lot of
right,
these products that you're promoting are not proprietary per
mhm,
se,
right,
especially if you're not doing it yourself,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Go and try to find a different provider.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that could be, say, let's just say that you have a product that a different manufacturer could replicate perfectly. Right. It's a little bit harder if you're doing things like, we'll just say flavors, gummies, type of, sometimes you may have, like, it
Yeah,
depends. If it's just a capsule of a supplement,
I
that's different.
understand, but flavors definitely change.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah,
So, but like,
you
yeah, I
can
mean,
make that pivot. I think
right.
that's like a very small pivot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's usually not hard, and also, and again, we'll go back to you're paying 100% upfront for 2 months. If you can, I mean, it's worth spending a couple weeks figuring out, seeing if you can go out to a new manufacturer or just negotiating with your existing, and go to the new one and say, hey, look, I'm working with these people. I'm happy with the price we have. All I need you to do, that I'll give you my business, and we're doing X volume, and I mean, the more volume
Yeah,
that you're doing, obviously, the
yeah,
better you can negotiate. but like I just want different terms. If we can just pay for it when we get it, I'll move to you. That saves you 2 months, right? Plus the credit card. Now you're 3 months worth of working capital. Like, I mean, and then you reinvest that back in your business, and you can see the math if you put it and you look at your return on invested capital. And again, let's just say that it's 500%. Well, you do that 500%, and then you're recycling that whatever 3, 4 times, 5 times a year, you're gonna scale very, very fast, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And again, it just comes back to understanding how all these things work, understanding if I make this change, what does that do to my profit? What does that do to my cash flow? But again, it all comes down to learning it first, mastering how they work and what levers do what in your business and versus just I feel like a lot of the people when I first start working with them, when I'm like, how do you make decisions? It's kind of just whatever pops in my head, I throw it into into like an idea, like a folder in Asana or project management, whatever. And then I kind of just pick them at random, right? Like that's most people how they make decisions, or like they have their team do it, whatever. This way, when you have the levers and you have an actual framework to see this change is going to do this, then you can prioritize so much easier because you can see the math behind it. And I'm a math guy. Like that's everything. Like the language of business is math. It's
Mhm.
literally, I mean, God, the language of the universe is math. If you get down to like quantum physics and like
Yep.
all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, I mean,
Totally.
math is
Totally.
literally our entire reality. So it's if you're not a numbers person, I mean, it's going to be a severe disadvantage to you going with AI.
Um,
Not because AI you're not going to have a marketing advantage anymore. Like after probably another yeah, roughly a year from now, I would say. I mean, the marketing, everyone's gonna have the same marketing. So like, what's your competitive advantage gonna be? It's gotta be on
yep.
product,
And even
experience,
today,
technology.
just with Facebook ad library and stuff, you just see a lot of copycat
Mhm.
advertising. Yeah.
Right.
But what you're saying in your theory, it really resonates. And I don't remember the specifics, but I do believe it was like Enron, that they were one of the top companies in the Forbes 100. I think even within the top 10, they cracked. I don't know how high they got before they ran into their trouble, but their troubles did not stem from a revenue issue. They had, their fundamentals were just hollow and
Mhm.
broken,
Right.
and that caused the demise.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing with this stuff too is like when you can go and say you want funding for a line of credit. Well, who do you think is going to get a better? Well, first of all, get the line of credit. Second of all, at the best interest rate. If you can go in and you can have all these numbers and you say, look, I know I can show you in our dashboard. We know that we spend $100 per customer. We make X back by this date. We make X back. We break even here, and then we know after that we make X in additional contribution margin over the next 6 months, 12 months, and it's just a repeatable system, right? If you're selling your business, right, how much more valuable do you like? How much of a better multiple are you going to get from a buyer where you can show them that versus if you're like, yeah, we spend a bunch of money and we make some money. We don't really know how it happens, but it happens eventually. Yeah, you should buy it, right? Give me a
Very
call
cool.
about it.
Very cool. Well, that was a really, really good overview of the scalable profit model. I would imagine we only scratched the surface of it.
Mhm.
So we'll put the link in the show notes about where you can get that book, and I highly recommend it. But where else can listeners find you, Jeremy?
Yeah, so I would say just go to scaleadvisors.com. So you'll find the book there, just scaleadvisors.com/book. And then also, if you want to work with me to do any of this stuff, I have consulting. If you want to just, if you want more contribution margin to put into more ads, either to get better scale or to be more profitable, I actually do done for you performance basis only things where we go in, we're adding new profit centers, and it's all guaranteed. It's all it's honestly a badass offer. Like I literally do all the work and only get paid after you get paid, and you get paid more. So it's a good deal, you know. And I've done this. I mean, I've done $200 million in revenue. I love adding new profit centers and things to people's business and just implementing all this stuff because it's all math based. We know before we make any change how that's going to affect the math. It's
You're
just
like a CRO ninja.
yeah, yeah. Like it's just, I spent a long time and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn saying this is the best framework or anything like that. To me, and of course I'm biased, right? It's mine. But like to me, it just makes the most rational sense of a framework to follow for scaling profitably with better cash flow and less stress. because it shows you what to work on and why and when, right? Like, it just all the things that you need to build a successful business. It breaks down and it just shows you how to do it right. So yeah. Anyway, if any of that resonated with you, yeah, scaleadvisors.com. Again, the book's there. I do content like this. I have a podcast, all the things. You can just go there and check out everything I got. If it all sounds good to you, reach out and we'll see how we work together.
Awesome. We'll put everything in the show notes. And Jeremy, thank you again for coming on the Built to Scale podcast and making it awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Built to Scale podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a conversation about what it really takes to build and scale in today's market. For more information about Built to Scale and how we help companies grow, visit builttoscale.co. If you have suggestions for future guests or topics, send us a note at podcast@builttoscale.co. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, this is your host, Shmuel Hirschberg. And remember to keep building, keep testing, and keep scaling.